Okay, so the last talk, by the way, was excellent, and it's kind of like the other side of what I'm going to talk about. So the kind of technical implementation of all the good things that you need for APIs. The fortunate or unfortunate truth is that you also need people, and you need to change the people and change the processes and change the ways of working when you are wanting to do all those nice technical things. And you also have to think about your business processes, your business needs, your partners, your customers, your other teams, if you're just doing internal APIs, like many of you are doing. But how to actually achieve that? Many of you, I'm sure, are in the kind of first, second, or third even generation of your APIs, and you've seen pretty much the change from integration-related APIs, where you just, you did something. It didn't need to be pretty. It was something, and you just did it to transfer data somewhere. And you, like many of the teams doing those APIs, didn't even know that they were not so pretty. So they were just, handling them as APIs. Now, I've been there too. A little bit about me. So I'm a founding partner at Osango, and I have been a API architect, API product manager, all kinds of other product manager, and all kinds of other architect, and business unit manager, and all kinds of things in different sizes of companies. While I'm still 25, I will never get older. I might have been doing some first web service kind of things in early 2000 when they were still fairly new. We hardly knew the word web services then. And let's say there were a lot of university students in a basement doing some forestry and agriculture management related web services. That was exciting. But all those journeys through startups to big corporations, consulting a lot of companies, took me to the place where I felt that, okay, there needs to be a better way of doing this. And we were doing some things right with the teams at a big retailer, where we had to do really a lot of things fast. And after that, I got into the API consulting, and I found that actually a lot of the stuff that we learned at the startups, we learned at the retailers and public sector, were still really good things to use in other companies too. And therefore, I was one of the co-authors of the API Economy 101 book, which is quite read all over the world, amazingly. And we combined research, like scientific research, with practical experience into the book. And some German guy today came to me and, "You are the only one that I know about API economy. I have to ask you some stuff." And I was like, okay, well, maybe not, but maybe the only one that I was writing the API Economy 101 book, and there are not so many books about that, not at least according to research. And this actually is from that book and actually a scientific research on the platform boundary resources and global API ecosystem. And I presented this in my first Apidays Paris talk in 2018. And I kind of showed this map and asked, how can we make APIs more widely adopted? As you can see, there's a green circle somewhere near Paris, London, random dots around Nordic countries in Central Europe, a lot of dots in US, but still a little bit dispersed, and something going on in Australia and some other places, but not a lot. Now, what's the point of this? Why am I talking about this? Because the amount of APIs correlates, according to this research, with global startup index. I mean, yes, startup, but you can draw some conclusions, and economic growth areas. And the research also said that APIs thrive in cultures where user-centric design is dominant. Now, how many of you have heard user-centric design being associated with APIs? Yeah, well, you don't count. Okay, well, you count, but you know, you were the obvious choice. Mashups, so combining different APIs, like we do when we are doing a lot of solutions, requires a certain amount of co-location and mindset for marketers and developers to co-create. Again, how many of you have marketers like next to your development teams? Anybody? Well, okay, good. Promising. So, well, what if this was the situation 2017, then interestingly, we launched the APIOPS cycles method as an open method in 2017, like at the end of 2017, but 2018 was the first time ever that it was spoken about outside Finland, coming from Finland, obviously. And right now, 5 years later, it is being used in all of those places with all of those dots. Okay, let's put it this way. I knew that it might do something good. I like the method myself, but I'm of course biased, but I'm still surprised about this. And the thing is that this year we redesigned the method. I think it's finally getting into maturity based on all the feedback and all the practice that we've had with our clients and with some other partner companies' clients. And the method is being used in places where I have never, you know, been myself or been in contact with them. And one funny surprise was when the National Australian Bank, Andrew Saunders from there was actually giving a talk this year in Apidays Australia, and Claire from APIs First was like, "Hey, did you see this? He's mentioning APIOPS cycles there." And I think he couldn't pronounce my name, so he just kept saying that the lady who organizes API Days Helsinki and North, which I also do. But anyway, the good thing was that there's a video where he tells about how they are using APIOPS cycles, and specifically the business model canvas. I'm going to say something about that later. And they have slightly customized and tuned it to fit their specific needs, which is totally allowed. It's an open licensed method. And why did we actually come up with it? Because there were a lot of technical problems. Like every time I went to look at an API that a new team member had designed, or a client had designed, or some random API that I had to use or do something with, these were always the problems 5 years ago and more. So handwritten documentation or somehow not open API generated, for example, sensitive information going to places where it shouldn't, no validation of open API definitions. It was so much fun to, for example, deploy a gateway or like API management solution when none of the APIs was validating, and you couldn't publish them without going to the team and say, "Hey guys, you know, you were coding this for like the last 6 months. Do you know what? You should code this again and design it again and do some stuff, because this is, well, crap, said in a nicer way." And they didn't take it in a nice way often. So, of course, missing or wrong status codes and examples and whatever. Authentication, something garbage. The bad thing is we are still seeing all of this in the wild, in many organizations. But then the trouble starts when you ask, why should business, like the clients or the organizations that we're meeting ask, why should business know about APIs? For some reason, the API enablement guys, the IT, the software development, they think that business should know something about the APIs. The business doesn't always think that they should know about the APIs. Also, how do we know what APIs to build? I was just yesterday having some discussions with some other speakers who had given some really great talks about how to get the design of open API specs, for example, or some other APIs into really great shape and the kind of technical process of it. But the problem remaining was that this is fine, but we don't actually know what features to build. Like, we know, but it takes a lot of time. So the first problem being that the rogue random API developer still, after 5 years, doesn't know that there is a good way and a bad way. Like if you pick a developer out of school or out of somewhere else, you have to teach them again and again how to create APIs. So many of you, many of others in this conference have managed to solve this with, at least temporarily, with a lot of governance and a lot of guidelines. The problem is the people who wrote them, like them, know them by heart, love them, think everybody else should love them, and everybody else hates them. Like, don't read them, don't find them, don't understand them, definitely don't do anything with them. The other thing is that this results into these depressing design reviews with more like stick than carrot. So you have this expert in the room saying, your API doesn't have this, 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 and this, and it is not validating, and what is the business case? And you have developers staring and architects and whatever, and wanting to leave the room, or the teams, or whatever. And then you have the process. If you get into a process, you have it built for individuals who each do their bit in their own silos, in their own cubicles, and they have this feeling that they are not supposed to maybe talk to each other except in some random meetings where somebody from architecture is presenting some boxes and arrows, which don't actually tell how the API works. Then the developer comes and shows the open API spec, and everybody else goes like, what the heck is this? And why have you designed it like that? Because that doesn't compute. I don't understand. And then, I don't probably need to continue, but the problem is that the result of all of this to business is that the value, the revenue or the other like cost savings, benefits, anything that you are trying to maybe achieve, that goes down over time. And the cost go up because you end up refactoring, you end up fitting in missing features later. You have a lot of support questions. This is my favorite because all the clients who have had APIs for a while and come to us are basically saying, do something, we're drowning in support questions. Our API is getting more traction, we're drowning. Do something, help us. Customer and team satisfaction go down because everybody's so frustrated. So the solution, APIOPS cycles, well, one potential solution is the kind of problem or like if we think of the people as the problem, they become part of the solution, and this requires this great method. Now, what personally I think is so great about this is that when we presented this to first clients, they were basically saying that you have to do this openly licensed because we have to use this in multi-vendor, like subcontractor and whatever situations. It doesn't fly if it's not open licensed. It needs to be lean. That was my personal thing because DevOps is supposed to be lean. There's really a lot of good things in lean, though sometimes misunderstood. Many people like Kanban over Scrum, for example, because it tries to create value all the time. It tries to get you to the final end result really fast and cut down waste. And then the business orientation of it, because you can have a lot of great design processes and guidelines and methods over APIs, but all of them are only targeting the technical aspects of the design. So collaboration is a key thing. Like Mike Amundsen actually said in today's keynote, and I think that was one of the reasons why I chose certain methods into the method inside the method, and so that business and product and technical experts could actually talk with each other and collaborate, because they don't understand the same methods, the same terminology. It's a wild west. So the idea is that the method can be used for new API and feature discovery, but also to reuse and improvements. And while creating it, we were looking at these different ways of what these people just mentioned are using. So a lot of the designers, UX designers, UI designers are having their own process. A lot of DevOps people are having their own process. And then there's the design of APIs or software in general. And how to take the good parts of all of that and combine them with what the business understands and product. So value proposition and business model canvas were recreated to fit the API needs. And these, by the way, if you are using this method, please, pretty please, use the value prop canvas first and then the business model canvas, because that is just making things so much easier, and you are taking into use all the good bits of mapping customer needs to the actual API features and discovering potential reusable APIs or new features, and creating a backlog as well as a product market fit. There are also other canvases in the method and a lot of other things. One of the reasons I kind of put these coloring page kind of non-functional requirement canvases there was that the problem is if you are trying to ask the company specifics of how you are doing risk assessment, capacity planning, and a lot of other things, you get this manual of a lot of things, and it's really heavy, and it's not meant for APIs. It's meant for bigger applications. And also, if somebody asks you randomly how much rate limit should be put into your API, anybody? I mean, nobody can answer that, because you need to actually think about the business case, the UX case of it, maybe if there's a UI, and you need to think of a lot of things in order to actually calculate the API kind of transactions there. And this method, these canvases are trying to direct you to have that kind of business or a bit more overview level conversation. This is the most used part of the method, the API audit checklist. And it's new and improved. I know, Aurelian, you hate this. Sorry. No, the visuals of it, not the content. Nobody has complained about the new content, but some people have some specific opinions about how it's laid out. Okay, but if you want to know more, there's the apiopscycles.com site. Go there. It's totally free and open. Then there's a new course, which we are also using to get people on board, but to kind of fund the further development of the method. So if you want to support us, go there and subscribe. It's 2 hours, and you'll learn a lot in it, and also how to, like, the best practices. We have a remote or on-site course called Futudemy, where we apply these methods, done with Cisco and a university from Finland. And this is also something we have on offer with a special funding for a few pilot companies. If somebody wants to try this out, talk to me more. So this is pretty much it, people. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, there are questions.
APIOPS cycle. Cool. Is the APIOPS cycle primarily for API consumers or API providers, or could I use it for both, and if so, how?
Absolutely excellent question. Thank you for asking that, because actually you can use it for both purposes. Of course, for API providers, it's obvious, but we are actually using it a lot with companies and also university students to learn how to discover all the APIs that are needed, for example, for a specific customer journey or solution. And it works really well for that, especially the value prop canvas.
And so to extend that question, if I work in an organization and for whatever reason this organization needs to rely on a third party, yeah, I can use that method to actually define what I want to do and be sure that the solution that I will choose actually match my needs.
Yeah, and this is a really, really important use case, because a lot of times, like we were just talking with a new startup with a CEO with business background, and the founding team doesn't really know that much about APIs, and they are using subcontractors to do all the APIs, and they don't feel they are knowing what to do. And this kind of method really, I think, helps in that sense, because it's a kind of language between the subcontractors and the business users. Anything else?
Yes, we have a question here.
Hello, thank you for the conference. Do we need an actual API governance to use this method?
That is also a good question, because actually you don't. The thing is that this is like a gateway drug. You know, you can actually start using this without having a big governance project or organization. Like even single team or single, well, I wouldn't say single person. That shouldn't be the case. You should have somebody to collaborate with. But like a team of technical and business person who just think they should have some APIs can start using it. But also it then rolls out to the whole organization if you want it. And what we are doing with some of the clients is that we are baking this in to their processes and their ways of working, API or general software and product management processes if not API stuff exists.
Other questions? No more questions?
No more questions. But hey, you can find me in LinkedIn and in those places here, so shoot me with questions. Thanks.
Thank you.